Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen had grown used to the surprised looks. When she walked into the briefing room at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado, California, carrying her leather portfolio and wearing her crisp Navy utilities, the conversations would pause. Eyes would scan her slight 5'4" frame, take in her unlined face that made her look younger than her 32 years, and then dismiss her just as quickly. "The coffee station is over there," a burly SEAL would often say, pointing toward the corner. "Admiral's assistant usually sets up before the briefings." Sarah never corrected them. She would simply nod politely and take her seat at the conference table, opening her files while the real introductions began around her. For the past 18 months, she had been the intelligence liaison officer for SEAL Team 7. But to most of the operators, she was just Chen from Intel, or worse, the Admiral's assistant. It wasn't entirely their fault. Sarah's job required her to be quiet, to blend in, to observe rather than dominate. While the SEALs planned their high-stakes operations, she provided the critical intelligence that kept them alive. She analyzed satellite imagery, decoded intercepted communications, and built target profiles that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. But her work happened behind the scenes, in windowless rooms filled with computer screens and classified documents. The morning that would change everything started like any other. Sarah arrived at the command building before dawn, her security badge swinging from a lanyard around her neck. She badged through 3 separate checkpoints, each scanner reading her clearance level with a soft beep. The guards knew her by sight now, though they still called her Miss Chen, despite the rank insignia clearly visible on her uniform. "Morning, Miss Chen," said Petty Officer Rodriguez at the final checkpoint. "Big briefing today, I hear." "Good morning, Rodriguez," Sarah replied with a smile. She didn't bother correcting the improper address. Yes, it should be interesting. Interesting was an understatement. Today's briefing would cover Operation Neptune's Spear, a classified mission to eliminate a high-value target who had been funding terrorist activities across the Middle East. Sarah had spent 3 weeks developing the intelligence package for this operation, working 18-hour days to build a complete picture of the target's movements, security protocols, and compound layout. She made her way to Conference Room Alpha, the secure briefing facility where the most sensitive operations were planned. The room's walls were lined with copper mesh to prevent electronic surveillance, and 2 Marines stood guard outside the reinforced door. Sarah showed her credentials again and entered the windowless space. The room was already filling with personnel. SEAL Team 7's commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Mike "Hammer" Harrison, sat at the head of the table reviewing mission folders. Around him, a dozen operators checked their gear and studied satellite photos. These were the elite of the elite, men who had earned their place through years of grueling training and combat experience. Sarah recognized most of them by now. There was Senior Chief Martinez, a 20-year veteran with arms like tree trunks and a scar across his jawline from shrapnel in Afghanistan. Petty Officer First Class Tank Thompson earned his nickname by being built like an armored vehicle, standing 6'6" and weighing 250, all muscle. And Petty Officer Second Class Jackson, barely 25, but already a legend for his marksmanship skills. "Hey, sweetheart," called out Chief Petty Officer Danny Walsh as Sarah entered. "You here to take notes for the Admiral?" Several of the SEALs chuckled. Walsh was known for his inappropriate comments, though he somehow always managed to stay just within the boundaries of what was technically acceptable. Sarah had heard worse from him over the past year and a half. "Just here for the briefing, Chief," Sarah replied evenly, taking her usual seat halfway down the table. "Course you are," Walsh winked at his teammates. "Make sure you get all the big words spelled right." Lieutenant Commander Harrison looked up from his papers. "Walsh, that's enough. We've got work to do." Harrison was one of the few officers who treated Sarah with professional respect. though even he seemed unclear about her exact role in the command structure. To him, she was a valuable asset who provided excellent intelligence support, but he had never asked about her background or experience beyond her current assignment. Sarah opened her portfolio and began arranging the briefing materials she had prepared. Each folder contained detailed floor plans of the target compound, biographical information on the primary target and his security team, analysis of escape routes, and recommendations for approach vectors. She had personally verified every piece of information, cross-referencing multiple intelligence sources to ensure accuracy. The door opened, and Rear Admiral James Hartley strode in, followed by his aide and two other senior officers. The room immediately came to attention. "As you were," Admiral Hartley said, settling into the chair at the head of the table. "Let's get started. This is a time-sensitive operation, and I want everyone clear on their roles." Admiral Hartley was a legendary figure in the SEAL community. He had commanded multiple SEAL teams during his younger years, participated in countless classified operations, and earned a reputation for tactical brilliance and unwavering dedication to his men. Now in his 50s, he oversaw all West Coast SEAL operations from his position at Naval Special Warfare Command. "Lieutenant Commander Harrison," the Admiral began, "brief us on the operational plan." Harrison stood and activated the wall-mounted display screen. A satellite image of a compound in a Middle Eastern city appeared, showing a large house surrounded by high walls and guard towers. "Sir, the target is Khalil al-Masri, a known financier of terrorist operations," Harrison began. "Intelligence indicates he's currently at his primary residence, which we've designated Objective Falcon. The compound is heavily fortified with an estimated 12 to 15 security personnel." As Harrison continued his briefing, Sarah noticed Chief Walsh whispering to the operator next to him, both men glancing in her direction. She caught fragments of their conversation. Admiral's secretary, and taking notes for the old man. Sarah focused on the briefing, though she could recite most of the information herself. She had been the one to identify the target's location through careful analysis of cellular communications and financial transactions. Her work had tracked al-Masri through 3 different safe houses before pinpointing his current location. "The approach will be a standard direct action mission," Harrison continued. 2 teams, Alpha and Bravo, with Overwatch support. Expected duration is 45 minutes from insertion to extraction. Admiral Hartley raised his hand. "What about the intelligence assessment? I want to hear from our analyst before we proceed." All eyes turned toward the back of the room, where a civilian contractor usually sat during briefings. But the chair was empty. "Sir," Harrison said, looking confused, "I believe our intelligence analyst is running late, but we have his written assessment in the mission folders." "I want to hear it directly," Admiral Hartley insisted. "Intelligence is the foundation of any successful operation. Where's the analyst responsible for this package?" An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Sarah realized that no one had bothered to read her personnel file carefully enough to understand her actual role. To them, she was just the woman who showed up to briefings and sat quietly while the real operators planned their missions. Sarah cleared her throat softly. "Sir, I prepared the intelligence assessment," Chief Walsh snorted. "Sweetheart, the Admiral's talking about the real analyst. You know, the guy who actually does the intelligence work." "Chief Walsh," Admiral Hartley said sharply, his voice carrying a warning edge. "What did you just call her?" Walsh's face reddened slightly, but he pressed on. "Sir, that's just Chen from Intel. She's basically an assistant. She brings the coffee and takes notes. The actual intelligence work comes from the contractor." Admiral Hartley's expression darkened, but before he could respond, Sarah stood up. "Admiral, if I may," she said calmly. "I am Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, Intelligence Liaison Officer for SEAL Team 7. I have been responsible for all intelligence analysis for this operation, including target identification, security assessment, and operational planning support. The room fell completely silent. Several of the SEALs looked confused, while others appeared skeptical. Chief Walsh laughed nervously. "Come on, you're not a lieutenant commander. You look like you just graduated from college." Sarah reached into her portfolio and pulled out her military identification card, placing it on the table where everyone could see it. The plastic card clearly displayed her rank, full name, and security clearance level. Lieutenant Commander Harrison leaned forward to examine the ID, his face showing genuine surprise. I apologize, ma'am. I didn't realize—" "It's quite all right, Commander," Sarah replied. "My role has been primarily analytical, so I understand the confusion." Admiral Hartley picked up Sarah's ID card and studied it carefully. His expression was unreadable, but Sarah noticed his jaw tighten slightly as he handed the card back to her. "Lieutenant Commander Chen," the Admiral said formally, "please proceed with your intelligence briefing." Sarah activated her laptop and connected it to the room's display system. The satellite image changed to a detailed floor plan of the target compound. "The target, Khalil al-Masri, has been under surveillance for 47 days, she began, her voice steady and professional. "Based on pattern analysis of his communications and movement, we have identified his daily routine and security protocols." As Sarah continued her briefing, the atmosphere in the room shifted dramatically. Her analysis was thorough, precise, and clearly the work of someone with extensive training and experience. She identified potential ambush points, analyzed the target's likely escape routes, and recommended specific tactical approaches based on the compound's layout. The target's personal security consists of 12 men, all former Syrian military, Sarah explained, highlighting their positions on the floor plan. However, intercepted communication suggests they may have additional support from local militia groups. I recommend planning for up to 20 hostile personnel. Senior Chief Martinez raised his hand. "Ma'am, how did you identify the additional personnel?" "Through cross-reference analysis of cellular tower data and financial transaction records," Sarah replied. "The target made payments to 3 individuals not part of his regular security team. These payments coincided with increased activity at the compound." The briefing continued for another 20 minutes, with Sarah fielding technical questions about intelligence sources, threat assessments, and operational recommendations. It became increasingly clear to everyone in the room that she was not only qualified, but exceptionally skilled at her job. When she finished, Admiral Hartley leaned back in his chair. "Outstanding work, Lieutenant Commander Chen. This is exactly the kind of thorough analysis we need for successful operations." Chief Walsh looked like he had swallowed something unpleasant. The other SEALs exchanged glances, many looking embarrassed about their earlier assumptions. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Harrison said to Admiral Hartley, "I want to apologize for the confusion about Lieutenant Commander Chen's role. We should have been more aware of her position and qualifications." Admiral Hartley nodded curtly. "Indeed. It seems there's been a significant oversight in understanding the command structure here." Sarah gathered her materials, preparing to leave now that her part of the briefing was complete. But Admiral Hartley gestured for her to remain seated. "Lieutenant Commander Chen, I'd like you to stay for the operational planning phase. Your insights could be valuable as we finalize the mission details." For the next 2 hours, Sarah participated in the detailed planning session, offering input on timing, approach routes, and contingency plans. The SEALs, now aware of her actual rank and expertise, treated her with professional respect. Even Chief Walsh managed to keep his comments appropriate. As the briefing concluded, Admiral Hartley announced that the operation would launch in 72 hours. Teams would begin final preparations immediately, with Sarah's intelligence assessment serving as the foundation for all tactical planning. After the others had filed out, Admiral Hartley approached Sarah's chair. "Lieutenant Commander, Might I have a word?" "Of course, sir." Admiral Hartley waited until they were alone before speaking. "I owe you an apology. This command should have better recognized your position and ensured you were treated with appropriate respect." "Thank you, sir, but it's not necessary. I understand that my role has been somewhat ambiguous to the operational teams." "Ambiguous or not, you're a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy, and you should be treated as such." Admiral Hartley paused, studying her personnel file that his aide had quietly delivered. "I see here that you graduated top of your class from the Naval War College and served with distinction in Afghanistan before transferring to intelligence. Why didn't you speak up sooner about how you were being treated?" Sarah considered her response carefully. "Sir, my job is to provide the best possible intelligence support to ensure mission success and keep our operators safe. Personal recognition has always been secondary to that objective." Admiral Hartley nodded slowly. "That's commendable, Lieutenant Commander, but respect and recognition aren't just about personal satisfaction. They're about maintaining good order and discipline. When officers aren't accorded the respect their rank deserves, it undermines the entire command structure." Sarah had never thought about it quite that way, but she recognized the truth in Admiral Hartley's words. "I'll be making some changes to ensure this doesn't happen again," the Admiral continued. "In the meantime, I want you to know that your work on this operation has been exceptional. The intelligence package you've prepared could very well save lives." As Sarah left the briefing room that afternoon, she reflected on the day's events. For 18 months, she had been content to work in the background, providing critical support while allowing others to assume she was just an assistant or note-taker. But Admiral Hartley's words had given her something to think about. Perhaps it was time to step out of the shadows and claim the respect her position deserved. The upcoming operation would be a test not just of the intelligence she had gathered, but of her ability to be seen as the professional officer she had always been. Walking through the corridors of the command building, Sarah noticed that her interaction with the security guards was different now. Word had apparently spread quickly through the building about the morning's briefing. "Good afternoon, Lieutenant Commander Chen," Petty Officer Rodriguez said as she passed his checkpoint. "Good afternoon, Rodriguez," she replied, noting the use of her proper rank and title. As she reached her office, Sarah realized that everything was about to change. The quiet intelligence liaison officer who had been invisible for 18 months was about to become very visible indeed, and she wasn't entirely sure she was ready for what that might mean. The 72 hours before Operation Neptune's Spear passed in a blur of final preparations and last-minute intelligence updates. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen found herself at the center of mission planning in a way she had never experienced before. Instead of working alone in her small office, she was now included in every strategic meeting, consulted on every tactical decision, and treated with the professional respect her rank commanded. But with that recognition came increased pressure and scrutiny. Every piece of intelligence she provided was now examined not just for accuracy, but as a reflection of her competence as a field officer. The stakes had never felt higher. 2 days before the mission launch, Sarah received an encrypted message that made her blood run cold. NSA Signals Intelligence had intercepted communications suggesting that al-Masri might have advance warning about American interest in his activities. The intercept was fragmentary, but it mentioned increased security and American surveillance. Sarah immediately called an emergency briefing. Within 30 minutes, the key mission personnel had assembled in Conference Room Alpha. This time, when she entered the room, conversations didn't pause, and no one offered to show her to the coffee station. Lieutenant Commander Harrison nodded respectfully as she took her seat, and even Chief Walsh managed a professional greeting. "What do we have, Lieutenant Commander?" Admiral Hartley asked without preamble. Sarah activated the display screen and brought up the intercepted communication. "Sir, NSA forwarded this intercept approximately 4 hours ago. The communication originated from a cell tower near the target compound. The message appeared on screen in both Arabic and English translation. Sarah highlighted the key phrases. "The Americans are watching," and "double the guard rotation." Senior Chief Martinez leaned forward. "Ma'am, how reliable is this intelligence? Could it be deliberate misinformation?" "I've run it through our verification protocols," Sarah replied. "The communication patterns match al-Masri's known associates, and the cellular signature is consistent with previous intercepts from the same location. I assess the intelligence as credible." Lieutenant Commander Harrison studied the message. "If they've increased security, we might be walking into a much larger fight than anticipated." Admiral Hartley turned to Sarah. "What's your recommendation, Lieutenant Commander?" Sarah had prepared for this question. "Sir, I recommend we proceed with the mission but modify our force allocation. Based on the communications pattern and timing, I believe al-Masri suspects surveillance but doesn't know the specific nature or timing of any potential action. He's taking precautionary measures, not preparing for an imminent assault." "Explain your reasoning," Admiral Hartley said. "The language in the intercept suggests uncertainty rather than specific knowledge," Sarah began, highlighting different portions of the message. "If al-Masri had detailed intelligence about our operation, he would likely evacuate the compound entirely. Instead, he's increasing security, which suggests he's being cautious but not panicking." Chief Walsh, who had been notably quiet since the previous briefing, raised his hand. "Ma'am, with respect, if they've doubled the guard rotation, we could be looking at 30 or more hostiles instead of 15. That changes everything about the tactical approach." Sarah nodded. "You're absolutely correct, Chief. That's why I recommend adding a third assault team and extending the mission timeline. We'll need additional firepower and more time to secure the compound." For the next 2 hours, they redesigned the operational plan based on Sarah's updated threat assessment. She provided detailed analysis of the compound's defensive capabilities, recommended new approach vectors to avoid likely ambush points, and calculated revised timelines for each phase of the operation. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Hartley pulled Sarah aside again. "Lieutenant Commander, I have to ask, how did you develop this level of tactical expertise? Your recommendations aren't just good intelligence analysis, they're operationally sound at a level that suggests combat experience." Sarah hesitated. Her personnel file contained classified sections that even Admiral Hartley might not have full access to without specific authorization. "Sir, I've had the opportunity to work closely with special operations units in various capacities over the past several years." Admiral Hartley studied her carefully. "Lieutenant Commander, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I expect a direct answer. Have you ever been in combat?" Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Yes, sir." "Recently?" "Within the past 3 years." "Sir?" Admiral Hartley nodded slowly. "I see. Well, that explains a few things. We'll discuss this further after the mission." That evening, Sarah returned to her apartment in downtown San Diego, but she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Admiral Hartley's questions and the implications of her growing visibility within the command. For years, she had carefully maintained a low profile, allowing people to underestimate her capabilities while she focused on her intelligence work. But now that facade was crumbling, and she wasn't sure she was ready for the scrutiny that would follow. Her phone buzzed with a secure message. The text was brief. "Package delivered. Your friend sends regards. Echo 7. Sarah smiled for the first time in days. Echo 7 was Captain Marcus Ghost Patterson, her former team leader from a classified operation she couldn't officially acknowledge. The message meant that additional intelligence assets were now in position to support Neptune's Spear, insurance policies that Admiral Hartley didn't even know existed. The next morning brought another crisis. During routine surveillance of the target compound, drone operators noticed unusual activity. Instead of the normal 12-man security team, they counted at least 20 personnel, all carrying military-grade weapons. Al-Masri was definitely preparing for trouble. Sarah was called to an urgent briefing with Admiral Hartley and his senior staff. When she arrived, she found the Admiral studying drone footage with a concerned expression. "Lieutenant Commander Chen, I need your assessment of this development." Sarah examined the real-time video feed from the surveillance drone. The compound looked like a military installation rather than a residence. Guards patrolled in coordinated patterns, heavy weapons were visible at key defensive positions, and the entire facility had the appearance of a hardened target. "Sir, this confirms my assessment from yesterday's intercept. Al-Masri knows he's under threat and he's preparing accordingly. However, I don't believe he has specific intelligence about our timeline or approach vectors." "How can you be certain?" asked Captain Williams, Admiral Hartley's chief of staff. Sarah pointed to specific locations on the video feed. "The defensive preparations are general rather than targeted. If they knew our specific plan, they would focus their defenses on our intended approach routes. Instead, they're strengthening all possible entry points equally." Admiral Hartley frowned. "That's still 20-plus hostiles with military weapons versus our 12 operators. The risk assessment has changed significantly." "Sir, I may have an alternative," Sarah said carefully. "Go on. What if we modify the approach entirely? Instead of a direct assault, we could use the increased security presence to our advantage." Sarah activated her laptop and connected to the secure planning system. Within minutes, she had overlaid a new tactical approach on the compound layout. "The increased security requires more coordination and communication," she explained. "That means more radio traffic, which we can exploit. I can provide real-time intelligence support from an advanced position, allowing us to track their movements and adjust our approach dynamically." Lieutenant Commander Harrison looked skeptical. "Ma'am, intelligence officers don't typically deploy to forward positions during direct action missions." "Under normal circumstances, you'd be correct," Sarah replied. "But these aren't normal circumstances. Real-time intelligence could be the difference between mission success and casualties we can't afford." Admiral Hartley considered the proposal. "Lieutenant Commander, are you qualified for forward deployment?" "Yes, sir." "How qualified?" Sarah knew this moment would come eventually. "Sir, I am certified in advanced reconnaissance, surveillance, and direct action support. I have deployed in support of special operations on 14 occasions." The room fell silent. 14 deployments suggested years of experience with elite units, not the background of a typical intelligence liaison officer. Captain Williams checked his tablet. "Lieutenant Commander, your current personnel file doesn't reflect that level of operational experience." "Sir, portions of my service record are classified above your current access level," Sarah replied diplomatically. Admiral Hartley's expression shifted as he began to understand the implications. "Captain Williams, put in a request for Lieutenant Commander Chen's complete service record. Highest priority." "Already in progress, sir," Williams replied, typing rapidly on his secure terminal. 30 minutes later, Captain Williams approached Admiral Hartley with a printout. The Admiral read it quickly, his eyebrows rising as he scanned the classified information. When he finished, he looked at Sarah with new understanding. "Lieutenant Commander, step outside with me for a moment." They walked to a secure corridor outside the briefing room. Admiral Hartley waited until they were completely alone before speaking. "Your record indicates service with the Asymmetric Warfare Group and multiple deployments with Special Operations units. You've been awarded the Bronze Star Medal with Valor Device, the Purple Heart, and the Combat Action Ribbon." Admiral Hartley paused. Why the hell has a combat-decorated officer been working as an intelligence liaison without anyone knowing her background? Sarah had dreaded this conversation for 18 months. "Sir, after my last deployment, I was offered the opportunity to transition to strategic intelligence work. I requested assignment to SEAL Team 7 specifically because I wanted to continue supporting special operations without the physical demands of direct action. What happened on your last deployment? Sarah hesitated. Sir, I was injured during a classified operation. Medical evaluation determined that I was fit for continued service, but recommended against future direct action roles. Admiral Hartley studied her carefully. What kind of injury? Traumatic brain injury from an IED, sir. No lasting effects, but it disqualified me from certain high-risk assignments. But you're requesting forward deployment for this mission? Yes, sir. This would be intelligence support, not direct action. I would be positioned to provide real-time updates and coordination, not engage in combat operations. Admiral Hartley was quiet for a long moment. Lieutenant Commander, I need to ask you something, and I want a completely honest answer. Are you physically and mentally capable of handling the stress of forward deployment? Yes, sir. Absolutely. And you believe your intelligence support could make the difference in mission success? I do, sir. With real-time updates on guard movements and communication intercepts, we could reduce the risk to our operators significantly. Admiral Hartley nodded slowly. Very well. You're approved for forward deployment as intelligence coordinator, but Lieutenant Commander... Sir? If there's anything else about your background that might be relevant to this mission, I need to know now. Sarah met his gaze directly. Sir, everything relevant to mission success is now on the table. That evening, as Sarah prepared her gear for forward deployment, she reflected on how much had changed in just a few days. The invisible intelligence officer had become a key player in mission planning, her expertise finally recognized and valued. But she also knew that tomorrow's mission would test more than just her analytical skills. She carefully packed her personal equipment: night vision goggles, tactical radio, encrypted laptop, and other items that most intelligence officers never needed. Hidden in the bottom of her gear bag was something else, something that no one expected an intelligence liaison to carry. Sarah picked up the item and examined it carefully. The custom sniper rifle had been a gift from Captain Patterson after their last mission together. She had never planned to use it again, but instinct told her that tomorrow might be different. As she secured the weapon in its case, Sarah realized that the mission was about to reveal exactly who she really was, not just to Admiral Hartley or the SEAL teams, but to herself. The next morning, Operation Neptune's Spear would launch, and Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen would finally step completely out of the shadows. She spent the rest of the evening memorizing every detail of the intelligence package, reviewing contingency plans, and preparing for what she knew would be the most challenging mission of her career. Tomorrow, there would be no hiding behind her intelligence analyst role. Tomorrow, she would have to be the officer her record claimed she was. As she drifted off to sleep, Sarah's last thought was about Admiral Hartley's words. Everything relevant to mission success is now on the table. But she knew that wasn't entirely true. There was one final secret, one last piece of her background that would remain hidden unless circumstances demanded its revelation. And given the way things had been developing, Sarah suspected that those circumstances might be closer than anyone realized. Operation Neptune's Spear launched at 300 hours under a moonless sky. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen found herself in a position she hadn't occupied for 3 years, lying prone on a rooftop with a sniper rifle providing overwatch for a special operations mission. Her forward observation post was located 800 meters from the target compound, positioned on top of a 4-story building that gave her clear sight lines to all approaches. The urban environment was perfect for her role as intelligence coordinator, allowing her to monitor radio communications, track guard movements, and provide real-time updates to the assault teams. Through her night vision scope, Sarah watched as SEAL Team 7 approached the compound in 3 separate elements. Alpha Team, led by Lieutenant Commander Harrison, would breach the main entrance. Bravo Team would secure the rear courtyard. Charlie Team, hastily assembled for this modified operation, would provide external security and prevent escape attempts. Overwatch, this is Alpha Leader. Harrison's voice crackled through her headset. We're in position for breach. Request final intelligence update. Sarah scanned the compound through her scope, counting guard positions and noting their equipment. Alpha Leader, this is Overwatch. I count 12 visible hostiles, all armed with AK-47s and RPGs. 2 roving patrols, 4 stationary positions. Target building appears occupied, lights visible in second-floor windows. Copy Overwatch, initiating breach in 60 seconds. Sarah adjusted her position slightly, ensuring she had clear fields of fire on the compound's primary escape routes. According to her intelligence analysis, Al-Masri would most likely attempt to flee through the rear courtyard if the assault went badly. Her job was to track his movements and guide the teams to intercept him. "Breach, breach, breach," Harrison announced. The compound erupted in controlled chaos. Flashbang grenades lit up the night as the SEALs blasted through the main gate. Automatic weapon fire echoed between buildings as the defenders responded to the assault. Through her scope, Sarah tracked the movements of both friendly and enemy forces, coordinating the team's advance. Alpha Leader, 2 hostiles moving to flank your position from the east wall, she reported, watching armed figures creep along the compound's perimeter. Copy, Overwatch. Bravo team, can you intercept? Bravo Leader copies. Moving to engage. For the first 15 minutes, everything proceeded according to plan. The SEALs advanced methodically through the compound, clearing rooms and neutralizing resistance. Sarah provided constant updates on enemy positions, helping the teams avoid ambushes and coordinating their movements. Then everything went wrong. Overwatch, this is Alpha Leader. Harrison's voice was strained. We've got the target, but we're taking heavy fire from an unknown position. Someone's got us pinned down in the main building. Sarah scanned the compound frantically, searching for the source of the accurate fire that was keeping the SEALs trapped. Through her scope, she could see muzzle flashes from multiple positions, but one location was clearly coordinating the others. Alpha Leader, I'm tracking multiple firing positions but can't identify the primary threat. Can you give me more detail? Professional sniper, Overwatch. Someone who knows what they're doing. He's got overlapping fields of fire on all our escape routes. Sarah's blood ran cold. Her intelligence assessment had missed the presence of a professional marksman among Al-Masri's security team. This was exactly the kind of oversight that could turn a successful mission into a catastrophe. Bravo team, this is Overwatch, she called. Can you assist Alpha team? Negative, Overwatch. We're pinned down in the courtyard. Same sniper has us locked down too. Sarah quickly analyzed the tactical situation. The unknown sniper had positioned himself to control the entire compound, using the confusion of the assault to take strategic high ground. The SEALs were trapped, unable to advance or retreat without exposing themselves to accurate long-range fire. She had 2 choices: maintain her intelligence coordinator role and hope the teams could find their own solution, or take direct action to eliminate the threat. The first option was safer and within her assigned mission parameters. The second option would expose her position and potentially compromise the entire operation. Through her headset, she heard the sound of wounded men. Chief Walsh's voice came through tight with pain. Alpha Leader, I'm hit. Can't move from this position. That settled it. Sarah adjusted her rifle and began scanning for the enemy sniper's position. All teams, this is Overwatch. I'm going to try to neutralize the sniper threat. Stand by for updates. Negative, Overwatch, Harrison responded immediately. That's not your mission. Maintain observation and coordination only. Sarah ignored the order. She had identified the sniper's likely position, a water tower approximately 600 meters from the compound, elevated position with clear sight lines to the entire target area. Through her scope, she could see the faint outline of a human figure positioned behind the tower's structure. The shot would be challenging. 600 meters in urban terrain at night against a target who was actively engaging friendly forces. Sarah hadn't attempted a shot like this since her last deployment with Captain Patterson's unit. the mission that had earned her the Bronze Star and ended with her injury. She controlled her breathing, adjusted for wind and elevation, and settled into the familiar rhythm of precision shooting. The enemy sniper fired again, the muzzle flash confirming his exact position. Sarah had a clear shot. The suppressed rifle barely made a sound. Through her scope, Sarah watched the figure on the water tower collapse and fall silent. The accurate fire that had pinned down 2 SEAL teams immediately ceased. "All teams, this is Overwatch. Sniper threat is neutralized. You are clear to advance." There was a moment of stunned silence before Harrison responded. "Overwatch, how did you make that shot?" "Alpha Leader, recommend you continue the mission. We can discuss details during debrief." The operation concluded successfully. With the professional sniper eliminated, Al-Masri's remaining security forces quickly surrendered or fled. The target was captured alive along with significant intelligence materials, and all SEAL team members returned safely to the extraction point. As the helicopters lifted off from the landing zone, Sarah carefully packed her rifle and prepared her preliminary after-action report. She had maintained communications discipline throughout the mission, but she knew that questions about her 600-meter night shot would come soon. Back at Naval Special Warfare Command, Admiral Hartley was waiting in the operations center when the teams returned. The successful mission had generated significant interest from senior leadership, and several high-ranking officers had arrived to observe the debrief. Sarah entered the building expecting routine post-mission procedures, but she immediately noticed something different. The usual casual atmosphere was replaced by formal military protocol. Officers stood at attention as Admiral Hartley approached the briefing room. "Lieutenant Commander Chen," Admiral Hartley called. "Front and center." Sarah approached, unsure what to expect. The room was filled with personnel she didn't recognize, full colonels, Navy captains, and other senior officers whose presence suggested this was more than a routine debrief. Admiral Hartley held a folder in his hands. "Lieutenant Commander, I received some interesting information while you were deployed. It seems that your complete service record makes for fascinating reading." Sarah remained silent, standing at attention. "According to this file," Admiral Hartley continued, "you are not just a combat veteran. You are one of the most highly decorated intelligence officers in the United States military. 3 Bronze Star medals, 2 with Valor devices. Purple Heart with Oak Leaf Cluster. Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal with Combat V. And most interesting of all, the Silver Star for extraordinary heroism during a classified operation in Afghanistan." The room fell silent. The Silver Star was 1 step below the Medal of Honor, awarded only for exceptional gallantry in action against an enemy of the United States. Admiral Hartley opened the folder and read directly from the citation. "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action against the enemy while serving as intelligence officer and designated marksman with Joint Special Operations Task Force. Lieutenant Chen distinguished herself by extraordinary heroism when her 12-man reconnaissance team was surrounded and outnumbered by enemy forces. Despite being wounded by enemy fire, Lieutenant Chen maintained her position for 6 hours, providing accurate sniper fire that eliminated 17 enemy combatants and allowed her team to reach friendly lines. Her actions saved the lives of 11 Special Operations personnel and prevented the compromise of a critical intelligence operation." Sarah's heart pounded. She had never expected her classified citations to be read publicly, especially not in front of junior officers who had been treating her as an assistant for the past 18 months. Admiral Hartley closed the folder and looked directly at her. "Lieutenant Commander Chen, it seems we've had one of the nation's most accomplished combat veterans serving in our command, and we've been treating her like a secretary." Chief Walsh, who was present for the debrief despite his minor wound, looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. "But what's most remarkable," Admiral Hartley continued, "is that despite this distinguished record, Lieutenant Commander Chen chose to work quietly in an intelligence liaison role, never seeking recognition or demanding the respect her achievements deserved. Until tonight, when she single-handedly eliminated a professional sniper threat and saved the lives of 2 SEAL teams. Admiral Hartley stepped forward. "Lieutenant Commander, I understand that your shot tonight was approximately 600 meters at night against an active enemy combatant. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir." "Using a personally owned rifle that you've never officially acknowledged carrying?" "Yes, sir." Admiral Hartley smiled for the first time. "Lieutenant Commander Chen, you are exactly the kind of officer the United States Navy needs more of. Capable, professional, and humble enough to let your actions speak louder than your reputation." What happened next surprised everyone in the room, including Sarah. Admiral Hartley stepped back and came to attention. "Lieutenant Commander Chen," he announced formally, "you have served with extraordinary distinction and brought great credit upon yourself, the Naval Special Warfare Community, and the United States Navy." Then, slowly and deliberately, Admiral Hartley raised his hand in a perfect military salute. The gesture was significant beyond its apparent simplicity. In military protocol, junior officers salute senior officers first. For Admiral Hartley to salute first was a mark of profound respect and recognition, acknowledging achievements and service that transcended normal rank structures. Sarah returned the salute, maintaining her composure despite the emotional impact of the moment. Around the room, every other officer followed Admiral Hartley's example, saluting the woman they had dismissed as an assistant just days before. As the salutes were exchanged, Lieutenant Commander Harrison approached. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology. We all do. Your actions tonight saved my team, and your professionalism over the past 18 months has been exemplary despite how we treated you." Chief Walsh, his arm in a sling from the minor shrapnel wound, stepped forward next. "Lieutenant Commander, I was out of line. Way out of line. You saved my life tonight, and I'm sorry." Sarah nodded graciously. "Chief, we're all on the same team. That's what matters." Admiral Hartley gestured for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want everyone to understand something. Lieutenant Commander Chen didn't reveal her background to gain recognition or special treatment. She revealed it only when doing so could contribute to mission success and save lives. That is the definition of selfless service." As the formal debrief concluded, Admiral Hartley pulled Sarah aside once more. "Lieutenant Commander, I have a question. With your record and experience, you could have demanded a more prestigious assignment. Why did you choose to work quietly as an intelligence liaison?" Sarah considered her answer carefully. "Sir, after my injury in Afghanistan, I needed time to process what I'd been through. Working in intelligence allowed me to continue serving while I figured out what came next in my career." "And what have you figured out?" "That I want to continue supporting special operations, but from a position where I can make a real difference. Tonight reminded me why I joined the Navy in the first place." Admiral Hartley nodded. "Well, Lieutenant Commander, I think it's time to discuss your next assignment, something that makes better use of your considerable talents." As Sarah left the command building that morning, she reflected on how much had changed in just a few days. The invisible intelligence officer had become one of the most respected members of the SEAL community. But more importantly, she had proven to herself that her injuries hadn't diminished her effectiveness as an officer. Walking past Petty Officer Rodriguez at the security checkpoint, she heard him speak with genuine respect. "Have a good day, Lieutenant Commander Chen. Thank you for your service." For the first time in 3 years, Sarah Chen felt like she had truly come home. The woman who had been labeled as just an assistant had finally claimed her rightful place as one of the Navy's most accomplished officers, and it had taken an admiral's salute to make everyone else see what had been there all along. The mission was complete, but Sarah's real journey was just beginning. With her background finally revealed and her capabilities acknowledged, she was ready to take on whatever challenges came next. The shadows had served their purpose, but now it was time to step fully into the light. As she drove home through the early morning San Diego traffic, Sarah smiled. Admiral Hartley had saluted her first, but she knew that the real honor was in serving alongside the exceptional men and women of Naval Special Warfare Command. They were all on the same team, and that was what truly mattered.